Today, we are so happy to kick off this week's education with the awesome Ashley Brown. For over 20 or almost 20 years, sorry, she has spent her career educating on how to properly love and care for hair of all texture types, with a big focus on medium to highly textured hair, curls, coils, and waves. She is a salon owner, she is a mentor, she is a texpert, a Sambi ambassador, and a Mizani artist, so she's pretty busy. And she's cultivated an awesome multicultural team and clientele at her salon, so she has all the tools and access to continue the mission of diversity and inclusivity in the salon industry. So please, in the chat, let's all show some love and welcome the awesome educator, Ashley Brown.
Hey everyone, thanks so much, Andrew, for the intro. I appreciate you for that. I am so excited to be here for Mannequin Monday. So we are going to get right into it. We're going to talk about silk press services. So our lovely Janet Mannequin here from Pivot Point has a beautiful silk press. And then we're going to also talk about how to get some waves and some texture out of your silk press, right? Because it's the holidays. So sometimes people come in, they're going to a holiday party, and they want to get right into it and get something a little different than what they usually get because they're going to a holiday party, right? All right, so we have our Janet right here. She is semi-prepped for you. To begin our silk press, we actually shampooed and conditioned her with the Mizani Press Agent Shampoo and Conditioner. So the press agent is going to help to assist with your silk press process. The shampoo and conditioner immediately starts to soften the cuticle and make the hair easier to manage right off the bat. So there's that. So everybody go ahead and drop silk press in the chat so you know what we're going over today. So to show our partings for a silk press service, you really want to break down the hair into different partings. I put these brightly colored clips on literally just so you can see how many different partings I have on the mannequin. So this is how I began to blow out the Janet that we have prepped today. I have a couple sections left, so I'm going to show you how I blow her out and how I get her to that silk press with the bouncy curl. But these are going to be our partings. So how many partings you have, you might ask me. For her, we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The partings, the amount you have is going to depend on the density of the hair. So everybody put density in the chat box. It depends on the density because if you have a really dense head of hair, you'll need more sections because you need control. So sections, the partings that we put the hair into, that's going to give us control. So whether you're new to doing silk presses or you've been doing silk press services for almost 20 years like I have some tips and tricks for you to make it as easy as possible for you to get your desired result. All right, so I see some people dropping in where they're from. I saw somebody said Chicago. Let me see, I'm just going through the chat. Be sure to drop some questions in the chat if you have any. I want to know who out there is performing silk press services currently. Drop I am if you are, drop nope, I'm not if you aren't. And if you're a client, drop I get them if you are getting silk press services. I'm just going to refresh my comments so I can see. Awesome. All right, so you can see I have my couple sections that I have here. And again, you're going to do multiple sections so that you have control as you're blow drying the hair for the silk press. All right, Kelly said, I am. Awesome, Kelly. That's great to hear. So just a reminder, we prepped her with the press agent, shampoo, and conditioner. Put those up so you can see them, the Mizani Press Agent. I also did a gentle clarifying shampoo on her for the first shampoo. So oftentimes when you have guests in the salon who are getting silk press services regularly, if they're coming to you, let's say once a week, once every other week for their silk press service, more often than not, they're going to need to be shampooed twice. So everybody put 2 times in the chat box. 2 times. They're going to need to be shampooed twice because you need to remove any buildup that they might have gotten over the last week of them wearing their hair in their silk press. All right, so we have our first section that we're prepping. So I have my 25 Miracle Milk, and what you can do is you can literally, once you've shampooed your guest, once you've conditioned your guest, you can go in, lightly mist with the 25 Miracle Milk. It's a great leave-in conditioner, and then just detangle the hair. So I'm doing it section by section because, again, like I said, I already prepped half of Janet's hair. So in detangling her, I just want to make sure I'm getting a nice, easy, smooth detangle, and the Mizani 25 Miracle Milk allows me to do that. So when detangling, you always want to start at the ends and work your way up to earn your right to the root so that you're not causing tension on the hair. Everybody put no tension. Okay, we want to make sure that as we're detangling, we don't have tension because if you get a tangle with that tension, you could cause damage. Okay, So gently detangling. Once we finish that, then we're going to prep it with our products. So for products today, we have our Press Agent Raincoat Styling Serum and Cream, okay? So the cream is going to give you maximum moisture. The serum is really going to help to lock in that silk press style so that you don't have issues with reverting, okay? And reverting means that if you go in and you do your silk press and then your guest walks outside, or maybe they go to their daughter's gymnastics tournament, whatever it may be, if their hair starts puffing up while they're at their event, that's what we call reverting. We don't want the hair to revert. We want to set it in the silk press and make sure that it lasts. So for the products, this is the cream and this is the Raincoat Styling Serum. So we have 2 times the amount of cream that we do serum, okay? You're always going to use more cream than serum if you're dealing with hair that's dry or porous, okay? And Janet, I would say she's like medium porosity. My Janet mannequin here, she's got some highlights. And so as we know, sometimes when you're putting color in the hair, that can cause it to be a little bit more porous, as well as having textured hair. Every bend in the cuticle can potentially be an opening in the cuticle. All right. So we have our no tension equals little breakage. Yes, love that. So we have our section prepped with our 25 Miracle Milk, nicely detangled, and then we have our styling products. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to use my Zambia 3-in-1 blow dry hot brush. So there are a couple different ways you can prep your hair to be silk pressed. This is one of my favorites because it's really great for clients who aren't that great with using a blow dryer and a brush if it's too many tools for them to handle. It's also great for a stylist who's new at doing a silk press service, okay? So we have 3 different settings here. We're going to do the second setting, which is highest wind and then heat, okay? So first setting, second setting. Now, when I begin to blow dry, I'm going to start through the ends and I'm going to earn my right to the root. The reason why I'm starting at the ends when I do my blow dry is because I want to make sure that if there's tangles in my guest's hair, I'm detangling again as I'm earning my right to the root, okay? So let me clip this hair out of the way so you can fully see what I'm doing. Okay, so second setting. So I'm starting at the ends and slowly working my way to the root, earning my right to the root, all right? So I'm not completely drying the ends. I'm just making sure that they're nice and detangled before I start moving up to the mid shaft of the hair, okay? So essentially I'm working in 3 zones. I have my third zone, which is right at my ends here, my second zone, which is my mid shaft, and then my first zone, which is right at my root area, okay? So I'm going through my third zone, working my way up to my second zone, and then up to my first zone, okay? So 3, 2, 1. Everybody type that in the chat box. 3, 2, 1. And you can even say that to yourself while you're blow drying if you're like, you know what did Ashley do? I need to remember so that I can make sure that I'm blow drying my guests without causing any stress or damage to their hair. Just remember that little dance, the little song. 3, 2, 1. The dance is us slowly moving up the strand, okay? And now one thing you should notice that even though I'm not raking through the hair really quickly, I'm taking my time, that I do have tension on the hair that I'm holding and as I'm pushing the brush into the hair, okay? So I'm holding this with tension to keep that stretched out, and then I'm using tension as I'm blow drying it. I'm also facing my brush downwards because I want to go with the way the cuticle wants to be smooth, okay? We need to make sure that that cuticle gets nice and smooth and that we close that cuticle as we're drying to ensure that our silk press will last, okay? So if I need to, I can come in this way, but I'm still keeping the brush teeth facing downwards, okay? I'm not gonna go up on the strand. If I need to, I can come underneath and go down. But again, I'm still coming up and underneath and then with that downward motion, okay? So you can see how nice and smooth Janet's hair is getting just from doing the blow dry with the blow dry hot brush, okay? So we'll just get her nice and dry here, nice and smooth. Now, it's really important to make sure that your guest's hair is 110% dry before you put any sort of hot tool on it, okay? So before you go in with your flat iron, with your curling iron, you want to make sure it's 110% dry. Everybody drop 110 in the chat box. All right, so you can see I'm getting close to that root area and pulling straight down through the ends with that downward motion to make sure that that cuticle is nice and smooth. Okay. All right, so once I have that nice and smooth, you can see that we haven't even done our silk press yet, and we're already getting some nice smoothness, some nice shine out of Janet's hair. So 2 things have set us up for success. How we prepped the hair using the press agent shampoo and conditioner that helps to soften and smooth the cuticle already with the shampoo and conditioning process. And then the products along with the blow dry hot brush gets us nice and smooth as we're drying. All right. And I just want to grab, this is how Janet looked before. I forgot to show her. So this is Janet when she came in. She came in to get a color service and her silk press. And so we got her color done and now we're giving her her silk press. So you can see based on her texture type, she's got some frizz. You know, she's got a little bit of stress to her ends, but by using the right products, and she did get a little trim before we started, after we did the color service, by using the right products, we can still get her nice and smooth. All right. So next section, same thing. Now I'm going to go blow dry the next section just so again, you can see the technique as I'm moving up the head shape. Again, most of the hair is prepped so that we can get into the smoothing and curling, but I just wanted to show little tips and tricks for prepping. So once you have your first section smooth, you're going to move up the head shape from the bottom all the way up and forward. If you were to start at the top, then what might potentially happen is you might not have as much control over the hair as you're blow drying. So by starting at the bottom and working your way up, it just gives you as much control as possible. So next section, I'm going to drop this down and I have them Bantu knotted. Everybody type Bantu knot in the chat box. I have them, my sections Bantu knotted because I want to make sure that those ends stay as moisturized as possible while I'm waiting to get to this section to work on it. Okay. If I was just pushing all the hair up and forward, the ends would start to get dry. They'd start to get frizzy. And then that's something that I have to work harder to control. So I'm going to show you too how to Bantu knot, just so you know what that is. So when I detangled my Janet, I had her all ready to go. I sectioned her off, and to Bantu knot, you're literally just going to twist with lots of tension. So I have lots of tension at the root. I'm holding my hand there and I'm continuing to twist down the head shape here or down the strand, twisting down the strand. And then once I have it all the way twisted, I start to create my Bantu knot. Okay, so I'm starting to create that knot there. And then you want to make sure, so I have my little ends right here. I want to make sure that I tuck my ends into my Bantu knot before I put my dry sectioning clip on it. I know they're called dry sectioning clips, but they're also great for sectioning the hair when it's in its Bantu knots as well. So you can see how nice and tightly compact that is together. You can say I have really clean partings. Again, this is going to set you up for success and just make it easier for you to perform the service. Okay. All right. So we have our first section blow dried, dropping down the next one. We all know how to Bantu knot now. I love it. All right. Now you can see that this section is starting to dry, and you might not be able to see it, but it has started to get a little bit frizzy. So if you have a guest who is very porous, okay, so that means that before they even get back to your chair, they're already starting to dry out. What you need to do is you're going to need to add a little bit more moisture back to their hair before you put your products in and start blow drying. Okay, this is important because if the guest hair dries with a lot of frizz, it's very challenging to then get the frizz out, even with the heat of the 3-in-1 blow dry hot brush, even with the heat of a curling iron or a flat iron, it's going to be really challenging to get the frizz out. So I'm just going back over it with a little bit of moisture. So this is literally just water in this spray bottle. So getting it nice and wet. As you notice, I'm avoiding getting the bottom wet here. I'm literally just focusing on the top, and then I'm using my 9-row and I'm just evenly distributing that moisture. So now you can see it's much more moisturized, wet, so it's perfect to begin blow drying. Yes. Yeah. Is there a question, Andrew?
Yeah, Yasina is asking, do you put the product in the hair before you twist them into the knot? Which actually, I think you're kind of answering that question right now, but I'll let you answer the question.
Yes, fantastic question. Thank you so much for that. I'm just going to show you again how much product I'm using. So this one right here is a Raincoat Styling Cream. This one right here is our raincoat styling serum. So you can see the serum, I'm using just about like a half a pea size of the serum and about a dime size to a nickel size of the cream, emulsifying so that it's evenly distributed and cocktailed in my hands, and then applying it ends first, working my way to the root. So you really want to focus the product mid-shaft to ends. And to answer the question that Andrew jumped in to ask, so one thing about products is they have style polymers in them, okay? Everybody drop polymers in the chat box. If you're not sure how to spell it, that's okay, take a guess. I'm a hairstylist. I'm not a English writing teacher, so if you spell it wrong, no judgment here. This is a safe zone. They have styling polymers in there. So what that means is if I were to take all the hair, take a bunch of product and just apply it everywhere and then section the hair off, if that hair starts to dry with some frizz in it. So I showed you how there was some frizz on this Bantu knot when I took it down before I resaturated it. If it dries with frizz, those style polymers are going to start to set the frizz. So you're better off shampooing, conditioning, using your 25 Miracle Milk. You can mist that all over and detangle with the 25 Miracle Milk and then put it in your Bantu knots. So you'll Bantu knot it, like I said, in your multiple sections. The number of sections you have is going to be based on the density of hair because you want to have as much control as possible. But you can see nice clean partings so that you are not tugging or pulling on any of the hair. So once you have it sectioned, that's when you're going to go through and pull it down section by section and apply your product before blow drying. So that way you can pull your Bantu knot down. You can assess, do I need to add more moisture to it? Has it started to dry and get a little frizzy? If the answer is yes, we'll resaturate, brush that saturation through, and then we can grab our blow dry hot brush again on that second heat setting. Okay, so we have our second setting, and starting at the ends, we're going to detangle those ends as we earn our right to the roots, as we work our way up. Okay, so starting at the ends to detangle, then we're working our way up, right? So we have our little dance, our song that we were singing as we were blow drying so we could remember what we were doing. So that's our zone 3. We're working in our zone 3, detangling those ends. Then we're going to our zone 2, which is our mid shaft. Then working our way to our zone 1. Now, as a reminder, you see I do have tension on the hair as I'm blow drying. The section is big enough for me to easily grip and hold in my hands so I can get that tension as I'm blow drying. Because tension and heat must meet to help to seal that cuticle close, okay? So everybody drop that in the chat box. Tension and heat must meet. All right, so you can see I'm coming down on that hair and getting nice tension. So if I wasn't blow drying with tension, this is what it would look like. Okay, so if I go through and I blow dry like this is going to cause, you can already see how much more frizz I'm getting. It's going to cause frizz. So everything we do is intentional when we are performing our silk press service. So drop intention in the chat box. It's intentional because everything from the Bantu knot to the specific way that we blow dry in zones is setting us up for success, okay? So the Bantu knots help to stretch out the strand to begin to smooth it out for the silk press service. Blow drying in our zones using tension helps to smooth that cuticle down to prepare us for our silk press service. So we have ease with the service. Okay? Yes, Claudia, thank you for dropping it in the chat. Tension and heat must meet. I see some ahas in the chat box. I love it. So we have good tension here, and you see I'm coming down with that tension all the way through. Now let's say if my guest was like, you know what, my hair is kind of fine, so I want some volume out of my silk press. I want some movement. If it's blow dried too smooth, I'm not going to get enough movement. If your guest wants more movement, then you're going to want to adjust. Instead of just blow drying everything straight down, you're going to want to make sure that you come across the head shape. So the cuticle is still pointing downwards by the force and the heat of the blow dry hot brush. It's still pointing downwards. I'm just coming to the side and down, right? To the side and down, okay? So I'll show from this angle. So instead of coming straight down, I'm going this way and then this way to add more movement, to add more volume to my silk press service, okay? So some guests who have hair that's a little fine, a little less dense, you may have to go back and forth on the head shape to get that movement, okay? But I still have that nice tension as I am doing so. All right, so we have our guest nice and dry. All right, and as I said, you can already see that we have some nice smoothness to it, and it hasn't even been silk pressed yet, okay? So I'm gonna drop this section down. As I said, we prepped Janet yesterday, so she is all the way dry everywhere else. I'm just going to grab my paddle brush here to just detangle her. And I'm just going to, you can see because she was clipped up, she's a little fluffier and frizzier. So I'm just going to use my 3-in-1 blow dry hot brush just to get that a little smooth before we begin our silk press service. All right. So just getting that a little smooth. And that's a great tip too for like parents or clients who are at home, you know, parents at home doing their kids' hair or clients who are at home doing their own hair. Some of my clients will be like, oh, you know, I don't shampoo my hair as frequently as I should because it takes me so long to do my silk press. You know, it's so time consuming. I get so tired. So I don't shampoo as much as I should. A nice little tip is your guests can go through, shampoo their hair, do their blowout, Bantu knot it. Maybe they don't do as many. Maybe they just do 3 larger Bantu knots. In the morning, take it down, use their blow dry hot brush, just like I did on that top section, and just put some heat through it to smooth it out before performing the silk press. So that's a way to break it up, because then it's like they can spend an hour on their hair maybe on Saturday night and then an hour on Sunday morning to get their silk press service done and make sure that they're shampooing as regularly as they should. All right. Okay, so we have our Janet all set for her silk press. She's just blown out pretty much. This side was heat styled a little bit, but not too much. So now I'm actually going to add just a little bit more of my raincoat styling serum. Okay, so I don't need a lot. I'll just show you. So just again, about a pea-sized amount for this whole head of hair. So I'm emulsifying it in my hand to heat up the product. And then I'm starting at the ends and I'm working my way up. All right, so Kelly asked, what clarifying shampoo do you use? Great question, Kelly. So I'll show it to you here. So it's from the Mazzani Moisture Fusion line. It is our Gentle Clarifying Shampoo. So the Gentle Clarifier is amazing because clarifying shampoos sometimes can be a little bit too clarifying for the guest who's shampooing regularly. So as I mentioned earlier, with the silk press service, you might have a guest who's shampooing their hair once a week, once every 10 to 12 days. And in that situation, you want to make sure that you're removing all the buildup when you do go through to shampoo their hair. And so that's why it's important to do your clarifier first. All right, so she's nice, blow dried, nice and detangled. I also mentioned before too that you want to make sure your guest is 110% dry. The reason for this is that with the Samvia Sleeker iron, so that's the flat iron we're going to use today, our Samvia Sleeker, with this iron, you can see that there is a little edge between the ceramic plate and the edge of the iron. So this means that you can get really nice and close to the scalp without causing any harm to your guest. Now, the thing is, if they're not 110% dry, if you go and get close to the scalp, it's going to create steam. And that steam could potentially burn yourself or your client when you're ironing. So as long as your guest is 110% dry, you can go through and get really nice and close to the scalp without causing any stress or harm to your client, okay? So let me grab my comb out here. All right. I'll just grab another clip. So when we begin our silk press service, we start in the back and work our way forward. Again, this is going to make it easiest for control. And I'm actually just going to part her down the middle. Part her down the middle, and I'm just going to take sections that are thin enough that I can see through them, all right? Because again, density plays a role when we are doing a silk press service. If we take a section that is too thick, we are not going to be able to really smooth it and sleek it out. So you can see this is like newspaper thin, okay? If it's too thick, you are not going to be able to get it nice and smooth and silky. So I have my Sambia Sleeker iron. I'm just going to pull the cord up here because I don't want it to get tangled with my other cords. And I have it set on the highest setting. Okay, so the highest setting, the iron has 3 different settings. We have our low and color treated, or our low setting, our color treated, and our high setting. Now you might ask, Janet has color. Why aren't you using the color treated? Because of the consistency of her hair. Okay, so couple things determine the heat setting that you're going to use on your guest. Consistency is one of them. Her consistency is slightly rough. All right, everybody type rough in the chat box. So your consistency can really be really soft and silky and smooth, like think of a silk fabric, or your consistency can be kind of rough. Think of like a burlap sack, okay? Or think of like a wool blazer. So if you're ironing clothes and you have a silk blouse and you have a wool shirt, are you going to use the same temperature on your actual iron for your silk blouse to get the wrinkles out that you will to get the wrinkles out of your wool shirt? Yes or no? Put in the chat box. Are you going to use the same temperature setting for your silk blouse that you would use for your wool shirt if you are ironing a shirt to get the wrinkles out? I'll give a second to put in the chat. And while I am waiting for people to answer in the chat, I will say this too. I'm going up and I'm making sure that these sections are really, really nice and thin so I can see through them. And then as I mentioned, I'll get closer here so you can see paper thin section, and I'm making sure that I use my comb, the fine teeth of it, to comb through to clean up my section, and I'm going right in at the root. So I'm right at the root, right at the scalp, coming through. Before I go through the ends, I put my comb in, and then my iron is going to push my comb the rest of the way. So I see a bunch of people putting no. TJ put nope with the thumbs down. TJ, you got the right idea there. Because if you go through and you iron a silk shirt with the same temperature setting that you would use on a wool shirt or a wool pair of pants, you're going to have some holes in your silk shirt. Same thing with hair. So think about it with hair. If you feel somebody's hair and it's really soft, really silky, really smooth, then you're going to know that you do not need a high temperature setting. Okay. If you feel somebody's hair and you're like, okay, I can feel the cuticle feels a little rough, you know, even after you've blow dried it, if you're like, okay, I can feel that it's just, there's a little roughness to it. It's not super silky. It's not super soft. Then you're going to know that you need a higher temperature setting. Okay. So put in the chat box, rough equals high temp so that you know, and then silky equals low temp. So that is our consistency of the hair. So you can see I'm kind of seamlessly moving up the head shape. I'm using the tip of my clip to section the hair. That's one reason I love these clips so much, because they have a nice, soft, smooth point to them at the bottom. And that makes it really easy for you to just come through, section the hair, clip it out of the way, and move on. All right, so I'm just going to move this closer. I'm going to do a couple more sections here before we get into curling, just so that you can really see what I'm doing. And actually, yeah, let me come in here. So I'm going to clean it up with my comb. Once I have it cleaned up with the fine teeth of my comb, then I'm using my iron and I'm getting right in there close to the root. I go on the roots twice. Once I do it twice, then I'm coming down the strand and I'm stopping halfway through to drop my comb in. Then I come back through and the comb, the iron is pushing the comb, okay? So we call this the comb chase. Everybody put comb chase in the chat box. And there are 2 different ways that you can do this. Both ways are just going to, again, help you keep your section nice and clean and organized and help you to get the strand as smooth as possible. So I'm bumping my root twice with the iron, placing my comb in, and then my iron is pushing my comb. So that's the first way to do the comb chase. The other way you can comb chase, and as you can see, I'm still taking paper fine sections as I'm moving up the head shape. The other way to comb chase is same way you start, place my comb in, and I'm coming around, but this time my comb is pushing my iron. Okay? The comb is pushing my iron. So I'll do that one more time so you can see it. Got my paper thin section. I'll turn her this way a little bit. All right, so I'm right up at the root here. I come through, I stop, put my comb in, and then my comb is pushing my iron all the way through to the ends. So now you can see already the hair is getting nice and smooth and silky for my silk press service. Now, one thing I want to note, let's tilt this up. One thing I want to note is that as I'm going through and smoothing this hair, again, my iron right at my root, just bumping it in there. I know that that's not going to burn or irritate my client because, as I said, I can put this right on my skin, and as long as I'm tapping it, it feels warm, but I'm not causing any burns, any tension, nothing of the sort, okay? If her hair was not 110% dry, then the steam that is created from the heat of the iron could potentially cause irritation to her, okay? So, but Janet, she's like, this feels great. I'm getting a silk press. It's right at the roots. I'm not having any issues or challenges. Like, I'm here for it, okay? So one thing I want to note as I'm going through with my silk press, I'm using maximum tension on my iron plates when I'm at the root and the mid shaft. Once I get to my ends, I let up on the tension a little bit. The ends have been around for the longest, right? So like my ends, I don't know, my hair is pretty long. My ends have probably been around for like 3 or 4 years. So one thing to think about when you're going through flat ironing, if you put the same heat and tension on the ends that you do on the root, you could be causing damage. So I'm taking my paper thin sections and putting maximum tension on the root to the mid shaft, okay? So root to mid shaft, maximum tension. On the ends, that's when, as I said, I let up the tension on the plates. So what I mean by tension is I'm literally squeezing. You can see those plates squeeze and meet. I'm squeezing like this when I'm at my root, and as I get to the ends, I start to let up. So I'm squeezing and then letting up, okay? Once you get through and flat iron the whole head, so we'll pull this down because, again, Janet has been prepped. So once we go through and flat iron the whole head, that's when you're going to do what we call the final pass, okay? So let's go to this side of Janet because she has already been completely ironed for the most part on this side. So for the final pass, you're going to take larger sections. So for our initial smoothing service, the sections were paper thin. That's what's going to give us just kind of like get rid of the texture. It's going to smooth things out, begin our silk press. To finish your silk press, after you have smoothed all that out, you're still starting in the back, but for your final pass, your sections are going to be, again, they're still going to be based on density, but they're going to be much larger. So for example, for this section, you can see how much thicker this is. Okay, so much thicker for our final pass than it was for the initial silk press service. And for the final pass, you focus mainly on mid shaft to ends. So you come through, you're still going to put your comb in to do that comb chase, but I'm still using maximum tension now as I go through on the ends. Okay, so final pass is going to be maximum tension as you go through those ends. And now this is better because our ends have friends. If we're taking a larger section as we finish up our press to smooth it out, our ends have friends, and so they're going to be protected, okay? All right. So I'm just going to show you a couple more sections, because I know we prepped this here, of our final pass before we get into curling. So half of Janet's head, I blew out and flat ironed yesterday, and the other half, I just blew it out so that you can see the difference of what your smooth out and curl looks like on hair that has been pressed and hair that has not been pressed. Because some of your clients, like if your guest has really fine hair, if you go through and do a silk press service on a guest with really fine hair and then try to curl it, sometimes you're not going to get as nice of a curl. It's not going to last because they don't have the density to support it. Okay. But if your guest has medium to thick density, you can go through and do a silk press, smooth that hair out, and then you can go in and curl it, and you're still going to have a nice, bouncy, beautiful, finished curled style. So I'm just going to, forgot I didn't do this top section here. So I'm just going to smooth this out with our paper fine sections before we go through to do our final pass. And then we'll get into curling. So I just have just this little square section on top. But like I said, by using your dry sectioning clip to section the hair off, you can really go through and whip through this hair pretty quickly to get it smooth. And now drop in the chat box, use tension root to mid shaft. Just as a reminder, you know, that it's going to help to ground the information for you, that you want to make sure that you're using tension on the root to the mid shaft. And then, like I said, when you do your final pass, you're taking larger sections and you're just focusing that tension then on mid shaft to ends to make sure they get really smooth and sleek. And we don't have to worry about any heat damage because two things. We have prepped the hair responsibly. We are using a ceramic iron. Our Samvia Sleeker iron is ceramic, so that's going to give us nice, even heat and help to protect the strand. And we also use products in the prep that protect up to 450 degrees. Okay, so choosing the right tools, that's going to set you up for success. Using the right products is going to set you up for success with your silk press. And then also being responsible with your heat setting. You know, we talked about consistency. We talked about our silk shirt versus our wool shirt, you know, and so as long as we are identifying the hair and the consistency and the texture that we're working on, we are going to make sure that we are properly addressing the heat, you know, and what setting the heat needs to be on before we go in for our silk press. All right, so we have her nice and smooth on this side. So again, with the press, I'll even show you up close because we haven't done her ends yet. You can see she's nice, smooth and silky here, but then right at the ends, because she's got that kind of rougher consistency, you can see the ends still look a little frizzy. But now that they have friends, I can go through and do my final pass to bump them and get them nice and smooth. So again, final pass, I'm taking much larger section as you can see, and now I'm focusing mid shaft to ends. So if you have guests who are using professional products, using a great professional iron like the Samvia Sleeker that's ceramic to flat iron their hair, you know, they're responsibly using the heat and they're like, you know what, Ashley, I am having heat damage. I'm having damage. I'm getting breakage from flat ironing my hair. Why is this happening? Sometimes it's happening because they're using the same tension and the same amount of heat at their root that they're using at their mid shaft. The root has been around for less time. It's stronger. It's a little healthier. There's not as much stress to the ends because it's at the root. And so you need a little more heat to get that smooth versus, as I said, the ends need friends. So we need to make sure that we have, you know, a little bit of a thicker section when we go through to get those ends with that maximum tension. Okay. So once we have her nice and smooth, as I showed you earlier, this is our Janet who literally just has more of like the classic silk press, okay? We gave her a little flare out in the front because she's got a little bit of a shag, got a little bit of a layered look just in the front. All right, so this is if Janet just wanted her silk press, she's like, this is how I want to leave today. This is how I usually get it. I'm good to go. This is the service you could complete using same products, same tools, same techniques, okay? Now, like I said, we have our Janet, though, who she's going to a holiday party. So if she's going to a holiday party, she might want a little bit of wave, a little bit of bump in her silk press. All right, so we're going to show you how to get that wave or bump right now. So once we have her nice and smooth, we're going to go back to our working Janet here. Once we have her nice and smooth, we're going to start curling her. Now, when we curl her, the size of our sections, again, are going to be based on density. If the hair is very dense, you're going to want to take smaller sections so you have control. So as you can see, density is key when it comes down to these services. So the section that I'm taking is a little bit smaller than the section I took when I did my final pass, but it's definitely much larger than the sections I was taking when I was doing my initial smooth out, okay? Now for this, you can add a little extra product if needed, and I'm actually going to. I'm going to use a little bit of the Mizani Shine Extend. So this product is a little bit heavier as far as the moisture, the weight of the product than the press agent. So I'm literally just going to mist the ends. I'm just holding it up, misting the ends, and that's it. Okay, because it's a little heavier and I don't want it to be weighed down, I want it to have some nice bounce and body to it. That's just going to give me a little bit extra heat protection and a little bit extra slip and glide as I go through with my iron. All right, so I have my sections back here, got my comb, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to put the iron at the base and I'm literally going to curl as I'm coming out. So when I speak to curling the hair with your flat iron, because we're going to give her a little bit more of a bouncy, bodyful curl with this service. When I speak to curling the hair with the flat iron, I compare it to when you curl a ribbon with a pair of scissors. I'm sure we've all wrapped a gift at some point in our life and had that ribbon that we took our scissors and just kind of used really good tension to get a curl out of the ribbon. So curling the hair is very similar to that when you're using a flat iron. You have to make sure you have the right tension to get that curl. And you'll even see that I move kind of Janet's hair away, or I move her head away as I'm curling because I want to make sure the tripod doesn't fall over because I need that good tension. Okay. So I'm kind of coming in with my iron here, heating up those roots, and then I am curling with maximum tension to get that nice curl. So we are getting some nice bountiful, bouncy curls going on, some curl action here as we're moving up the head shape. And this is a nice little add-on. Like as far as making extra money behind the chair, this is a great add-on because once you get the hang of it, you can literally whip some curls in a head of hair in an extra 10 to 15 minutes. Like it really, once you get the hang of it, it doesn't take much time to go through, take your sections, and just begin to curl the hair. And that can be easily an additional $20, $25 on the service, depending on what market you're in, for an added service, you know, in addition to the service you're already providing to your guest. So, all right, let's get in here. All right. So you can see, and this one, I'm going to show you this one because this didn't have enough tension on it. You know why? Because my iron actually turned off. Another great thing about the Samvia iron is that it does have an auto shut off. So because I turned this on well before the class, and now we are well into the class, it did auto shut off. So I'm just going to turn that back on because we definitely need the heat to get Janet nice and smooth. But I'll show you. So this piece had less heat and less tension. And you can see how, yeah, it's got like a little bit of a wave, a bend to it. It's got some bounce to it, but it's not as bouncy and curly as we want it to be. So you got to have that right heat setting, and you have to make sure that you have enough tension to get that nice bouncy curl. So kind of a good thing that happened. So we could show you the difference. All right, so we got our heat back on it, coming through. And we got our nice bouncy curls back. All right, so we'll go back over to our finished Janet so you can see the difference. And for her, we gave her a little bit more of that like loose kind of bouncy wave, right? For her, we gave her more of that bouncy curl. So once you complete your style, whether you're doing classic silk press, whether you're adding some curls, adding some waves, you can definitely finish up again with a little bit of the Raincoat Styling Serum just to kind of smooth out and finish out the style, right? So we'll go into just a little recap of what we did. We have our before Janet. This is what she looked like when she came in for her service today. So you see her texture type. You see she's got a little frizz, a little texture to her hair there. So we shampooed her, clarifying first with the Mizani Moisture Fusion Gentle Clarifying Shampoo. Then we went through with our Mazzani Press Agent shampoo and conditioner to begin her silk press service. So again, these products are going to help to smooth out the strand right with the shampoo and conditioner service step. So that's great. Then we went through and detangled her completely using our 25 Miracle Melt. So lightly mist that all over. Grab our 9-row Samvia brush. This is so great for detangling. Starting at the ends, work your way up, get her nice and detangled. Once she's nice and detangled, that's when we are going to section it into our sections. The number of sections you have is based on density, okay? So it's based on density. Once we have our sections off in the Bantu knots, that's when we're going to use our Raincoat Styling Cream and Serum and start to go through to apply the product section by section. So Bantu knot by Bantu knot, applying the product and blow dry with our 3-in-1 blow dry hot brush on the second setting. Okay, so there's 3 settings. We use setting number 2 to blow dry to smooth her out. Once she's nice and dry all over, 110% dry, because we want to make sure we keep her hair as healthy as possible and prep it for the service properly. Then we added just a pea-sized amount of the serum, emulsified in our hands, applied that everywhere, and went through with our Samvia Sleeker iron. So again, with the iron, paper thin sections, you want to see through them so you can get it nice and smooth and silky and shiny. Once you go through with your paper thin sections, max tension root to mid shaft, then you're going to do your final pass using larger sections to get that tension and smoothness on the ends, okay? Before you curl, as I mentioned, I did miss a little bit of the Mazzani Thermosmooth Shine Extend. So if you're curling, that's great to give you a little bit more smoothness on the ends, a little bit more moisture, a little bit more shine, and then also protection on the ends when you go back through to give it some bounce or some curl or wave, okay? One thing I wanted to note with the Raincoat Styling Serum and Cream, remember, a little bit more cream than serum. Serum has a little bit of hold to it. So if you use too much, it's not going to be as easy to manage the hair. So you want to make sure you do about like a pea to a dime size amount of the Press Agent Cream. And then of the styling serum, you're going to use like a little bit less. So like a half a pea size of the serum to make sure that it's easy to control the products. So that's about it. That's all we got.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. This was
Nice.
such an in-depth class. You always bring so much detail and clarity into these processes. So thank you so much. It was awesome, and you got lots of love in the chat for sure. And please, make sure you go follow Ashley on her social, because she does share a lot of great content, and she's always out there sharing information and sharing education. So thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.